proceedings with the karakia, Mr. Mackenzie. Great, thanks very much for that. There's a few new faces in the room, so we'll just introduce ourselves to you. My name's Rob van Voorthausen. I'm an Independent Hearings Commissioner based in Napier.
Morena tātou, I'm Poto Davies, Independent Commissioner from Cambridge.
Ngā tātou, Stephen Wilson. We would have thought I'd have that under lock by now. Kia ora tātou, Stephen Wilson, Tipini Te Sam, Independent Commissioner based in Hamilton, also from the Cambridge area.
Morena, I'm Douglas Fairgray, Independent Commissioner from Auckland.
And Morena, I'm Roseanne Jollins, an Independent Commissioner from Taupo.
And Kerry, could you please repeat the health and safety briefing for us this morning, please?
Morning, Commissioners. Quick health and safety. If the fire alarm goes off, this is the only exit to the room. So please make your way down the stairs. And the meeting point is just in front of the church here off to your right. The toilets are on the mezzanine level as you come down the stairs, halfway down the stairs. Lunch will be at 12:30 today. Again, Commissioners will take the back room off to the left, proponent off to the right, and then TDC and their guests will head off to the building just next door, but we'll sort that out. I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, tea and coffee, help yourself. Just the little trolley station outside there, everyone's welcome to that. And in the event of a long break like yesterday, there is a cafe down the road. You can make your way there too. Thanks.
Great, thanks very much for that. The order of proceedings this morning is we're going to commence with hearing from submitters, after which we'll hear from the Section 42A reporting team. But just before we hear from submitters, Dr. Forrett, for the applicant, anything you want to bring to our attention this morning?
In case you wanted to have any feedback from Ms. Lewis on those additional matters, and also we forgot to formally introduce that subdivision plan through Ms. Lewis's evidence, and perhaps we can do that now.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Morena. So I have I provided a response and sent it through to Carrie, was late yesterday evening, to the 3 additional suggestions and the tweaking to some of the other matters of control. I do have hard copies of that document that I'm happy to distribute. Oh yeah, okay. Perhaps rather than read through the entire document, I'll just I looked at the existing matters of control, and then the amended and additional matters that the chairman helpfully emailed to Mr. Bonnis and myself, and provided some comments on those. So, in summary, my view is that yes, they improve the document and they provide some widened scope for potential future consent conditions to apply. So, I'm very happy to agree with those. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much for that, Ms. Lewis. Appreciate that. Dr. Forrett, there was one other thing you wanted to do, was there?
Just recording that structure subdivision plan that was provided yesterday is entered as part of Ms. Lewis's evidence.
Yep, okay, thank you very much.
And other than that, I think we're
good.
Complete, thanks.
Okay, you just want to turn your microphone off. And so, Hilary, you got a few new faces on your table this morning. So again, just before we hear from our first submitter, just want to have the new people introduce themselves to the hearing today.
Yeah, sure, thank you. Just one thing that Carrie just forgot to mention for those that are also new, because we're live streaming, we do need to have our microphones on. We had a few texts through yesterday and a few gaps when it goes silent on the live stream just because people had forgotten to turn their microphones on. So we'll try and remind you if you forget, but just to add that on. So today, really, I'm not going to say much at all. Hilary Samuel, I think I've met everyone. From the TDC team, but today James Winchester from Simpson Grierson, our council, will be leading our case today. So I will let him introduce himself, and perhaps our other team members can introduce themselves as well.
Kia ora. Good morning, sir. Good morning, commissioners. My name is James Winchester. I'm a partner at Simpson Grierson in Wellington. You will have seen some material from me. I'll allow the other team members to introduce themselves. Obviously, I'm here to assist the panel, so welcome questions through the council's presentation.
Morena, Rebecca Ryder, a landscape architect, partner at Boffa School, here on behalf of Taupo District Council.
Matt Bonnis, planning consultant for Taupo District Council, was here yesterday. Just before we go to the others, I'll just make the point that I've asked the Section 42A reporting officers to provide brief 2 to 3 page summaries in terms of where their positions are now, given the rebuttal evidence, so they'll be distributing those before they speak. But I'll hand over to the others.
Morena koutou, Willie Shaw. I'm an ecologist with Wildlands here with Taupo District Council.
Good morning, Philip Osborne, Property Economics, assisting in matters pertaining to economics.
Morena, Dennis Lewis, Infrastructure Manager, Taupo District Council.
Right, thanks very much for that. The first submitter that we're hearing from this morning, Stephen Sanderson. Is Mr. Sanderson here? So we have a table up here by that white pole. So if the next one up. Yeah. So Mr. Sanderson, good morning and welcome. Just for your benefit and for the submitters who follow you, thanks for your original submissions. We've read those, so you don't need to reread those out to us. If as a submitter you've tabled evidence in advance, and in your case you haven't, there's no, that's not a problem. But if submitters have tabled evidence in advance, we've read that, so that does not need to be reread out to us either. But Mr. Sanderson, over to you now to highlight the key points that you want to bring to our attention, and then we'll see if we have any questions for you.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to actually submit on this matter. My involvement really over the years has been with the Trust and Whareroa. I've been a part of the community for a long time. I've been associated with the community as previous chairman of the community for about 16 years. And in that time, or in the time that I've known of Whareroa, I've always been of the belief that this piece of land was a part of the original subdivision. And I find it quite difficult that we're actually sitting here today having to discuss this. My history with the Trust has been, as I say, in association with the different projects the Trust has assisted us with in the village. And as I say, back in 1973, when I was a young Turk with the Lands and Survey Department, I remember coming to a meeting, and I'll put that in my report, coming to a meeting about the future of that piece of land, of where the Whareroa village is now. And at that time I believed that it was going across the river. There was a fence line that ran right across that property, and that was going to be a staged development, and at the end of the staged development, that section across the river was part of it. when I bought my property in 1987, as part of, you know, when it was developed, I was again sort of the opinion, and it was pointed out to me that yes, it was a stage development, and we were in stage 2, and there'd possibly be 10 stages, and across the river was, I believe, was part of that subdivision. So I can't see why we're sitting here today really having this discussion. And I think I find it really, really difficult that we're actually here to discuss this. It should be a fait accompli, really. The natural processes need to be passed, you know, the scheme of subdivision, the rezoning, or if it needed to be rezoned, should have been taken care of in 2006 with the structure plan. It should have all been a part of that whole program. That's my belief. It has been said that I've got a vested interest in it because I'm a real estate salesperson, but I've been associated with Whareroa and other matters a lot longer than I have been a real estate agent. And I think at the end of the day, you know, all of these things are business, and I expect the trust to be going wider field to find who is the best agent and who are the best company to actually handle any future sales. At the moment, we're in a great position at Whareroa. I have actually no listings. Sales in the last 12 months have been exceptionally good. It's been the best since sort of like 2006, 2007, prior to the GFC. The GFC, all of these little things that come along, like GFCs, the 87 crash, 93, there was another hiccup. Every time there's a hiccup in the economy, and COVID probably may affect us down the line, but at the moment, interest is still pretty strong. In fact, it's very strong. I've got no properties to sell, and I have got buyers to buy property. I'm prepared to answer any questions that anyone wants to put to me at this stage.
All right, thanks, thanks very much, Mr. Sanderson, and thank you for preparing your evidence, which we have read. I'll just see if we do have any questions for you. If I do have any questions. Stephen? Doug?
No questions, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Sanderson. I just had one quick question. Obviously, as a resident and someone that knows the area very well, it's been put to us in several documents that there is a uniqueness to Whareroa.
Yes.
And I would just like to hear from you in your own words what you see that uniqueness is, please.
Well, it's when you you've got to drive. I don't know how many of you people have driven into Whareroa, but when you drive into Whareroa, it is a very special place. 90% of the properties there have got views of the lake, extensive views of the lake, and very few places around the lake have that. We've got 1 kilometre at least of beach. I tried stepping it out. It's a bit long. My steps vary, but it's well over 1 kilometre actually of beach, and it's used by. I think if you go around the lake, there's not that many little, even Kuratau or Muripukawa have got that much beach. You know, it's a very special place, and then it being unique, there's a special feel about the place. I don't know whether too many people experience it, but most of the people that are in Whareroa don't want shops. They like the atmosphere, and it has an atmosphere. I have a very strong personal feeling about the place. In fact, sometimes I go down and sit down by the lake and just suck it up. It's got an energy of its own. The lake has an energy, and I believe Whareroa has too. We've got the cliffs on one side, and the marae on further down the beach, and it's a beautiful spot. You go around the lake and find somewhere better. Yep. Oh, you didn't call in for a coffee?
No. So, Mr. Sanderson, in your evidence, you make mention of the boat ramp, and some of the
Yes.
submitters in opposition are concerned about the effect of this proposed development on the boat ramp and the associated reserves. Based on your experience, what would be, and so this is outside of peak holiday periods, what would be the typical kind of usage of that boat ramp on any given day?
Outside peak periods?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at Queen's birthday weekend, just for an example, I know it's outside, it's one of those weekends, but at any one stage during that week, there was no more than 6 boats out. Okay. A normal weekend, during the winter, it's very quiet. During the week, Monday to Friday, sometimes there's only 2, maybe 3 boats out. Where the peak times are the times when there are problems, mainly due to some of the activities we run as a village at that particular peak time of the year. We are getting more and more people. I'm on the Harbour Masters team, and I've done the odd survey over Christmas. Not on New Year's Day, that would hold up the traffic a little bit, but there's quite a number of people from Taumaranui that come in, Western Bays. We service that whole area with the boat ramp. We also, because Omuri Kuritao are quite congested, we do get an overspill from there. Round about 10% of the people that came through this Christmas era time, and that's when most of the people will sort of suggest that the Whareroa boat ramp isn't up to scratch. About 10% of the boats were from Kuritao Omuri. I did a survey 2 days before, 2 days after. I couldn't do it on New Year's Day or Christmas Day. Those days are too busy. I don't want to hold up the traffic. But I'm present on most of those busy days. And about 10% of them are from Omuri Kuritao.
And so just to clarify, so on a very busy day, how many boats do you think there might be using?
I think this Christmas, this New Year's, and keeping in mind that we have our fishing competition on New Year's Day, doesn't help, but there would have been probably 50 at the maximum boats out at any one time. It's during the day between, say, 9 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is probably the peak times. After that, it starts to drop off.
Yep.
But there's no real, dare I say it, some of the problems are caused by the boaties themselves. You know, in fact, most problems at the boat ramp are caused by the boaties. Inexperience and things like that.
All right,
They hold them up.
Yep. Thanks very much for clarifying that, and I think that's the end of our questions for you. So thank you very much for coming in this morning.
That's all right. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and thank you.
So the next submitter on our list is Desiree Drayton, who I understand is going to have someone speaking on her behalf. Is that correct? Yep, come on up. So good morning and welcome.
Good morning. My name's Jeff Drayton. I'm married to Desiree, and we live in Owakuni. We just only recently purchased a property in Whareroa, along with a couple of other friends that had bought properties previous to us, as Rodney McCoubry and Campbell Harding, who I've known for a long time, basically all my life. So I'm speaking on behalf of all of us. And I don't know, Rodney was supposed to be our spokesman, so I was sort of being thrown under the bus, but he was busy doing other stuff, so bear with me. I've been holidaying in Whareroa for the last 9 to 10 years. I never even knew the Whareroa existed before that. It was a friend of a friend that rented me a house there. And coming from a small town myself, when I got there I was surprised that it even existed. It was a great little village with unbelievable views, beaches that you don't really get anywhere else in Taupo, And I was quite taken back, actually, that not anyone knew about it. There's very little hidden secret. Even in Awakuni, no one knows it. It's only a 50 on a good run, hour 10, normally. So it surprised me a little bit. But that was the beauty of the place to me. And so I was sort of determined that I was going to buy something there eventually, which I have now, so I was pretty happy with that. And I have undertaken my construction of my house there, which is kind of cool. And so is Rodney and everyone else. And we looked at it, and when we bought property there, a lot of the properties in the older section had been held onto for a long time. And I sort of questioned that. But to me, it showed me that people obviously invested there early, maybe, is what I could see. And then there was never the demand for it to sell again until their price was right. So to me, that took about 30 years. So I don't see the demand in the properties there as such. And yeah, it comes in waves and goes, but generally in a whole, I don't think it has grown incredibly well in that time. And most of the people that I've seen there that bought are long-termers, not developers as such. They buy it for the same reasons of being isolated and a unique place to live or holiday. And as you look at a village, it's nice and small, and I don't see putting another 160 sections there as a benefit to the village. It is, from my personal point of view, it is taking away from what is the beauty of it with wildlife and the isolation, I suppose. Because once you get in more population, as I've seen in Awakuni growing up there, the more population we get, the less adventurous it is, I suppose. It takes a lot of things away that you can never get back. Like, yeah, wildlife's a huge one in Awakuni. That's gone backwards a lot in that time, just with noise and pollution alone. Traffic, everything like that. There is a lot less wildlife on the road from when I was a child. And one evening we were in Whareroa building, and we were sitting up quite late one night, and we could hear kiwis and that, and we were unsure if they were kiwis or not, so we ended up getting sound effects from the kiwis on YouTube, and it definitely was a kiwi. And you don't get that very often, not in New Zealand. A lot of people haven't even seen a kiwi, let alone hear them. So I was sort of like, oh shit, there's something here. And then, like, I have a quail family that comes and visits me every morning. You don't get that a lot either. So I look at it and go, so you put in a whole lot of houses, and I only presume that they all came from that bush area where the development's going, because there's not a lot of, maybe from the other side at the rocks. But who's to say? So if you start putting in houses, diggers, everything over there, are we going to lose all that? And that worries me. As well as the spawning of the trout, everything that comes into it. It's stuff that you cannot replace. Where houses, infrastructure, you can easily do that. But it's just basically what are the benefits against what we're going to lose that you can't replace. So that's why I've come to talk, basically. Like, everyone understands all the legalities and everything of getting the roads and everything like that. There's no point of me talking about that. It's just, yeah, I don't want to lose a good little village, that's all. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and cheers.
No, thanks for coming in. We'll see if we have questions for you, Roseanne.
Mr. Drayton, hi, I'm Roseanne, and coming to talk to us is not like falling under a bus, I promise.
Thank you.
I'm just interested, as you're a permanent resident in Whareroa, aren't you?
No.
No?
Oh, yes, sort of, yeah. I'm only an hour away. I've got a house in Aokini as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
So just with your daily dealings in the village, what percentage of, in your mind, are residents versus sort of the holiday makers that come and go in the holiday season? Like, in your
In my opinion?
yeah, in your perception of, in your
Personal
time
and personal, you mean permanent residents that live there?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's not many. Probably
many.
only 15%, maybe.
Sure.
I'm even unsure of how many houses are there, but I only count about 150. And then there's, yeah, probably only here.
Cool. And how's the building going?
Good.
Good.
Good, bit slow. That's understandable.
Yeah, COVID hasn't helped, no.
Not at all.
Yeah, but thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for coming in. I just have one question. You talk about the attraction of the place for yourself, and you see yourself as being there long term?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, I've built the house basically for my children and children after. I've no intention of ever selling. And same with Rodney and Campbell. We're all under the same intention of leaving as our little legacy, I suppose, for our families. So that's why we like the community spirit and the isolation. It's not to gain economic value and anything for us. It's just to have somewhere for family to go.
Right. That's good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that. I just wanted to check your view, and I miss some of what you said around demand. I was curious whether your view was that the people buy the properties, as you've just alluded to, that's a sort of a lifestyle choice, and they're there for the long term anyway, so that then they don't have the demand, like they're not going to flick the property off, or is it because there's another reason that demand's not there? I just want to test your thinking there.
Well, see, the way I look at it is that section sat there for the 8 or 9 years, and it was only last year it seemed to be a lot of a flurry. Everyone sort of brought up, and I don't know why, but it must have been good economic time at the time. So a lot of sections sold last year, but before that a lot sat around, and I sort of look at it and go, well, people actually have to fall in love with the place, and it's, yeah, I know there's been a lot of struggles and people trying to sell houses there. Like, you either like the place or you don't, so you've got to have a passion for the place to buy there, I think. I don't think it's sort of, oh, we'll make huge money out of it option as far as development goes. As an Awakuni, it's cheap to buy an Awakuni, so people do as an investment because everyone's attracted to the ski field, where Lake Taupo's, there's a lot of options to buy, and a lot of people don't like isolation. A lot of people need their comforts of takeaways and towns, and there's not a dairy in Whareroa, as you know. So a lot of people don't like that sort of living. It's sort of a special breed that go there, I suppose, and that's why there's less of a demand for it, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people maybe don't want to buy there, or it just doesn't suit them, or that's sort of my view.
Great, thank you.
No worries.
Kia ora.
Hi.
I just wanted to pick up on Stephen's question, actually, and it's around, you talked about how the percentage of in the village part-time dwellers, really. Do you think that will be replicated if the Whareroa North development proceeds? Do you think that will be replicated in that side as well of the village?
As far as people buying
With long-term aspirations like you have for your children, but not so much living there permanently.
I definitely don't see people living there as such, because there's no, well, what would you call it? There's no economy there, basically, unless you can work from home, as a lot of people do. That's one option, but there's no jobs as such. Maybe a bit of building maintenance and things like that, lawn mowing, obviously, and stuff like that. But like general day-to-day running, no, there's not a lot of employment there. So I look at it and go, it is going to be basically all holiday makers in my eyes.
Mm. And you also talked about how you'd never heard of Whareroa.
No.
And what a gem it was when you found it. So
Yeah.
once you told one person and they told one person, you've all now got a property there.
Yeah, I'm partly to blame there, yeah. I took them on holiday there as the friend rented me batches there, so I'd stay there and then they'd come and look at it and they enjoyed it that much. And that was why they all loved it, because it was so unique. We've holidayed in a lot of places, Kinloch, everywhere, and it doesn't suit us because of the population, basically, and that's what we don't like. We like to get away and be alone, sort of thing. The stresses of life aren't there. Where you start putting a lot of people in there, you do get the stresses, I think.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Drayden, when did you purchase your section?
February last year, I think. Yes.
February 2019. And when you made that purchasing decision, were you aware that the area up on the plateau that's now proposed to be rezoned had been identified by the Taupo District Council as a future urban growth area?
There had been talk of it, and then it was only from sort of friends and acquaintances, but not. I didn't think it was as far as it was, if you know what I mean. I was always, and then a lot of people would said to me, say at the fishing competition, "Oh, are you buying?" This is earlier on, say 4 or 5 years ago, because this is as big as it gets, you're going to miss out. So I sort of just word of mouth that I never really understood that could be an option over there. But didn't investigate it either, so...
Yeah. So you were aware it was an urban growth node, or you were not aware?
There was, like the guy who rented the house obviously said, they have talked about developing over there, but they never think it'll happen and things like that. So I don't. That's only one guy saying something, so not hugely aware of it, no.
Great. Thanks for coming in. No further questions.
No worries. Thank you.
Waikato Regional Council. Good morning and welcome. So you know the form, we've read the original submission, thank you for that. We've read the evidence that you've put in and also your contributions to joint witness conferencing. If you did, I can't recall if you did, I think you did. So over to you. You don't need to reread any of that material to us, but you're welcome to highlight key points for us and then we'll see if we have any questions.
Kia ora tātou, ko Miwhi Foley toku ingoa. Ko taku mahi, ko te kaitatari kaupapa mo kunihera o rohi o Waikato. He rawe hikite I tātou e tēnei rā. E te whare tēnā tātou katoa. My name's Miwhi Foley. I am a Senior Policy Advisor with the Waikato Regional Council. This is my colleague Michelle Flay, who has coordinated the submission on this private plan change. So I do have some speaking notes that I will talk to. If you would like a copy, I can email them to Kerry to send around. I just didn't have access to a printer at home yesterday.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission. The scope of my evidence is based around the Waikato Regional Council's functions, particularly those under the Resource Management Act and the Waikato Regional Policy Statement, otherwise known as the RPS. So the RPS provides an overview of the resource management issues of the region, and it aims to achieve integrated management of the natural and physical resources of the region and sets direction for the implementing documents such as regional and district plans. So under the RMA, those district and regional plans are required to give effect to the RPS. And the current RPS became operative in 2016. It is a second generation plan, so it has quite directive implementation methods as well as the higher order objectives. The RPS helpfully contains a reader's guide, which assists with interpretation, so that's quite a useful section of the document to read. So there is wording in there that it helps explain how the method should be implemented. Shall has been used where the methods are of a directive nature, where little discretion is intended to be exercised. Should has been used where it is intended that the direction should be followed, except where there are good reasons not to, as demonstrated in a Section 32 report or other appropriate evaluation or analysis. So the Reader's Guide also states, some activities will be deemed appropriate despite the fact they will or may create adverse effects. This will generally occur when the positive effects the activity will generate are considered to outweigh the adverse effects. So this needs to be considered in the context of the RPS as a whole and the region and district as a whole. So you need to consider, does the proposal contribute to achieving the outcomes set in the objectives of the RPS? In this case, there is agreement between the ecology experts that there will be significant residue effects on the SNA. The applicant's landscape expert acknowledges that the ability of the OLA to accommodate change is low and concludes that when more information is available at the resource consent stage, that it's an appropriate time to assess those effects. The question is, if there isn't a demonstrated demand for housing in this location, is the disturbance and disruption of the SNA and the outstanding natural landscape justified? Is this proposal contributing to the accomplishment of the outcomes that are articulated in the objectives of the RPS? So objective 3.12 is particularly relevant. It requires that development of the built environment and associated land use occurs in an integrated, sustainable, planned manner which enables positive environmental, social, cultural and economic outcomes. It's also, excuse me, it's also worth considering the issues that the RPS is attempting to address. Issue 1.1 recognises the declining quality and quantity of natural and physical resources, which impacts their life-supporting capacity, reduces intrinsic values and ecosystem services, and in general reduces our ability to provide for our well-being. And issue 1.4 relates to managing the built environment and states that development of the built environment, including infrastructure, has the potential to positively or negatively impact on our ability to sustainably manage natural and physical resources and provide for our well-being. In relation to natural hazards, I still have concerns with the level of uncertainty around the geotech hazards, particularly in relation to the risk of the erosion feature. I don't consider that there is sufficient confidence to say that the risk is not intolerable, and I think this is something that should be determined before a residential zoning is applied. While the worst case geotech scenarios have been identified through the evidence, the implications of these scenarios, either singly or together, have not been clearly set out. For example, if the combined worst case scenario is encountered in assessing the requirements for the access way, what is the maximum area of ground disturbance that is required to stabilise that slope, and what does that mean for the ecological assessment? In relation to comments that the Southern Settlement Structure Plan should be able to be relied on, while I appreciate that the applicant's point of view in that regard, the structure plan was not prepared under the RMA and so was not required to give effect to the RPS. District plans do need to give effect to the RPS, and this is alluded to in the RPS in section 6.11, which relates to topo district planning. C acknowledges that changes to the Topo District Plan intended to implement Topo District 2050 must be considered on their merits under the RMA. So based on these reasons, I still have reservations as to whether the proposed plan change does adequately give effect to the RPS. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'll see if we have questions for you. Pato, any questions?
Okay.
Her written notes that she just read to us. She doesn't have any printed copies.
Yeah,
She couldn't access a printer this morning.
I can send it to Carrie and she can print it out. Yep. Okay.
Anything in the meantime? Stephen?
Thanks for your submission and what was given this morning, this is probably more the chair's domain. I'm just naturally curious.
Mm-hmm.
The issues that you've raised in your the submission, where the reasons for regional council opposing are matters that are vexing, appears to be exposed to the proponent and Section 42A advisors and the panel as a result. That said, and without advocating a view, it seems to me that there's been, through joint witnessing, whatever you guys call it, you know what I'm talking about, you've reached a point where there's some area of agreement and some area of disagreement, but it seems to me to relate more to timing. So, for example, things like the access works, I don't disagree that that's an issue, but that's not really an issue that we turn our minds to as part of this process. So it seems to be a timing issue to me that if, for example, we were of a mind to grant the plan change and access is not guaranteed, that's on the proponent. If they then fail to gain access, that's a risk that they've got to be prepared to take. So I'm curious as to your view within your area of expertise is how we should treat the access issue compared to the plan change issue itself and other matters in terms of the geotech that's already been identified as an issue, but also a suggested solution is at this point in time that'll either be resolved or not for sure. Again, that's a risk that appears to me that the proponent has to take on board or not. Obviously, if the plan change is declined.
Okay, so in regards to the outstanding natural landscape and the ecology, there seems to be agreement between the experts that the effects can be somewhat mitigated or offset. I guess a major outstanding concern is that erosion feature in the area that is to be rezoned. There isn't certainty as to what are the hydrological processes that are going on underground, and obviously the Regional Council is reasonably risk averse in regards to putting residential development in an area that is subject to natural hazards. So that would be an area that we would definitely like to see more work done before a residential zoning is applied in that location. So the council's expert, I believe, suggested a number of investigations that could be done in that area that don't require disturbing the SNA or the outstanding landscape, that could provide a bit more certainty before that zone is applied. From talking to colleagues that work in this area and have a lot of experience, they've said that pumice landscapes can be difficult. You don't know what's underground. After working 20 years in this area, they're still surprised by some of how the water moves through the pumice, because you don't know what's under the soil. It can hit fault lines, and it would, if you were to put houses on that erosion feature and then something, there was an event, there was a slippage or something, then it would have a high impact. So it might be low risk, but it would be high impact. So that would be something we would want to have ruled out before a residential zone is placed on there.
Sure, and I think that we're in agreement there. My question relates, that is an issue that needs to be resolved. Right. My question relates more to the timing of it. So it could be done here as part of the plan change process. And let's say, for example, the plan change is granted. It would have to be done here, that geotech work, otherwise the construction work couldn't carry on and so on and so forth. So it seems to me that the issue will be resolved at some point in time. It becomes an issue of when it is resolved. Would you agree with that, or am I off base here?
Yes, however, the district plan does need to give effect to the RPS, and it does in particular say that you need to avoid areas of intolerable risk. And if you don't know that, so to be being sure that you are giving effect to the RPS and avoiding that intolerable risk, you need to know if it is an intolerable risk or not. So I would argue that at this stage, it is work that needs to be done now before you proceed with a residential zone in that location.
Great, thank you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for appearing here. I've just got a couple of questions and they relate more to the, I suppose, the general development principles and some of the matters covered in the joint witness statement on planning. And as I said, the development principles under 6A. Generally speaking, across the Waikato, the whole region, it'd be true to say that the major share of new residential growth is greenfield. Is that a fair observation from your experience?
It obviously varies where you are, but that's generally most of it is greenfield, yes.
Okay, and generally under the planning system, it is incremental to the established urban area, so it's consolidation from that perspective, even though it involves the take-up of land, which is in farm or lifestyle block or whatever. Okay, so from that point of view, would you consider the proposed development being greenfield growth incremental to an existing urban area?
Well, I guess it depends on what you call an urban area, whether a small village is an isolated village is urban, but it has been identified as a growth area, so it would be greenfield development adjacent to an existing settlement.
Okay, thank you. So when I talk urban area, you know, the full range. It's an area where the uses are urban as opposed to rural. Okay, no, that's all. Thank you very much.
Roseanne, any questions?
I don't have the...
Yeah, sorry, I haven't
okay.
quite emailed it to her yet, sorry.
Yeah. I did have a question prior, and you talked about WRPS 611, and in your joint witnessing statement you talked about that as well. Ms Lewis stated that she thought that it should have more precedence over 6.1 because it was specific to the TOPO implementation. Is that a fair comment, and if not, why not?
Well, the RPS needs to be considered as a whole, and that it's the interpretation you need to consider all these things. And as I said, it sets out a process that needs to be followed. However, those processes that are outside the RMA process aren't required to give effect to the RPS. So that's why there's that caveat that the proposals still need to be considered on their merit under the RMA, because there are instances where there's growth strategies prepared that are inconsistent with the RPS, and we may submit on them, and that may not result in any change, and as far as we're concerned, they're still inconsistent with the RPS, and that will need to then be addressed when it comes to the plan change stage.
You also talked about other policies that are directional, like 618 in your joint witnessing, but you didn't allude to the little I of that section as well, where it talks about shall recognise and provide for how relationships of tangata whenua to their whenua culture and wāhi tapu can be recognised and provided for. It strikes me that is almost a cut and paste of the Part 2 6E. So did you apply any weighting in your assessment to that as well?
It is a consideration. I do not have a lot of experience in that regard, and so that's not my area of expertise, but I recognise that it is important.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm curious as to why the Regional Council's taken such a strong interest in this particular case. The Regional Policy Statement, Policy 611, little a, Romans 2, says that urban growth in the Taupo district is to be in accordance with the Taupo District 2050. This one is. The RPS Policy 611B says that those identified growth areas should occur by way of a structure plan and associated plan change process. This is exactly what's happened here with the Southern Sector Structure Plan and the process we're now in. And then we have section 6.6.3 of the Taupo District Plan identifies this very area as an urban growth area. And it seems to me the regional council's role is more of a strategic one rather than getting into the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of the types of issues that would be dealt with under the subsequent subdivision consent process, which is, of course is mandatory. So can you just explain to me why the regional council is taking such a strong interest in this case? And just before you answer that, I was involved with the Kaipo Bay development proposal that went through a consent process in 2018, which was publicly notified, 46 house lots, out of zone, and the regional council did not even submit on that. And that was, in my view, a much more potentially contentious proposal that had more adverse effects than the one before us. So just curious as to what's going on in the background here.
Well, as I said, it's not just Section 6 which is relevant here. There are the other parts of the RPS that need to be applied, and we do have particular concerns around the natural hazards. Our council is becoming a lot more risk averse around natural hazards with climate change. That is something that is in the forefront of their mind, given the changing environment that we're living in. We're getting more frequent severe weather events. So natural hazards are definitely something that they are concerned about. So that is partly why the regional council was taking more of an interest.
Okay. And in answer to the questions from some of my fellow panel members, you mentioned that the particular interest is the geotechnical concern. Did you obtain any independent geotechnical advice in terms of forming your evidence or submission to us?
No, we relied on the district council's evidence. And
you mentioned, in response to an earlier question too, that you had concerns about adverse effects on SNA 62 and the ONFL. And I wasn't clear in my mind, was that in relation to the proposed access road or was that in relation to the area up on the plateau?
In relation to the access road.
Okay. And you did also clarify that your particular geotech concerns relate to the erosion feature in the bowl?
Yes, but there's also uncertainty as to the overall impact of what they find through geotech investigations for the access road and its impact then on the SNA and the outstanding landscape. So I appreciate the ecological experts have said that they agree there's significant residue impacts and they believe these can be offset. It's uncertain what they've based that on, given that there is no definitive area that is actually going to be disturbed. At this stage, we have a range of risks that have been identified, but that hasn't been expressed as a minimum or a maximum area, so it's a bit hard to see how exactly it's going to impact on that area.
So I'm just getting a bit confused now. So are you talking now about the access road or are you talking about the area up on the plateau?
That's for the access road. So there's a level of uncertainty in both areas.
So what's the level of uncertainty with regard to ecological effects up on the plateau?
Only on where the access road is proposed.
Only the access road.
So the geotech is the natural hazard up on the plateau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the regional council's concerns about Indigenous biodiversity issues are related solely to the access road?
Yes.
Okay. And in that regard, your view is that it appears that the ecologists are of a mind that those potential adverse effects can either be mitigated or offset in terms of the access road?
That appears to be their consensus, yes.
All right, thanks very much for coming in. Appreciate that.
Clarification?
Well, you can put the question to me and I'll see if I can pretend that I put it to them.
I'm just wondering whether, since the lockdown period's finished, whether anyone from the Regional Council has had an opportunity to go to the site and have a look at these concerns relevant to either the Indigenous vegetation or the geotechnical issues.
All right, that's a reasonable question. We ourselves had to adjourn this hearing because we couldn't do a site visit.
Yeah.
We've now done one on Tuesday. Have you been able to go to the site and have a look?
No, I haven't been to the site. I have consulted with colleagues in the Topo office that are familiar with the site and the area. I don't know if they've been to the site recently, but they are very familiar with the area and the soils. Oh, they have. Yes, yep, they have been to the site.
Yeah, well, that's not really
yeah,
the question.
So no,
the question is, have you been to the site?
I haven't, no.
No. All right, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
10 o'clock, so now 42A team. Option for you is we can either take an early morning tea or we can just launch straight into it and let you go for half an hour. Or what's your preference?
In your hands, sir, but I think perhaps we have 15, 20 minutes now.
Yes.
And we'll issue out a couple of our summaries as well.
Yeah, that's good.
And then basically talk to those and then answer questions therein.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so we've come to a point in the hearing where it's a natural break point, so we'll now take an early morning tea. We'll adjourn for about 15 minutes. And just to put the hearing on notice that contrary to what Carrie helpfully told us this morning, we'll be adjourning for lunch at 1 o'clock today. That's my fault. I've got a Zoom conference with people in Wellington at 1:15, which I need to attend. So thank you for that. We'll adjourn now and come back in about a quarter of an hour or so.